Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all the higher praise, honor, glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Akrakudas. Double honors to the elders and honors to the apostles. Preaching, teaching us the word of truth with sincerity as always. At the great millstone and like-minded camps. Doing all of that. Doing these works. Walking in faith. Catching the hell and enduring this truth in this walk of Yahushai. Bearing our crosses daily. So in this lesson I want to get into I wish to get into this little thing that I caught my eye in the spirit. Thought this was interesting. And before I get that, this video is going to be entitled Modest Apparel unto Woman. How a woman should be dressed. A woman were commanded to dress the Lord's uniform that He gave unto you, woman, or woman of the tribes of the stock of Israel. Right, of the stock of Israel, man. Before I get all that, I want to start with Song of Solomon, chapter 4. This is written by our man Solomon, who is Yahushua. Who else would know about women in romance? Alright, Jacob loves our people, and myself love that. Romance. So-called romance. Really don't know what that word means, but this is, so I'm gonna put this. What does the word romance mean? The word romance goes back to the Latin word romanticus, meaning of Roman origin, or in the Roman style. It originated in the 5th century to describe the Border Latin vernacular spoken in the Roman Empire, eventually evolving from medieval tales of chivalry to describe the emotional concept of love. Its Latin roots, it stems from Romanus, Rome, or later Romanis, an adverbial phrase meaning to speak in the vernacular Latin rather than classical Latin. Yeah, so that's awesome. But when you go into that word, what you think about that word is that love you have for a woman, which the scriptures, the Lord calls it fervent. He calls us his fervent lover. So I'll use that word instead. Sorry for using that other word. This is a fervent here. Fervent is an adjective describing feelings, beliefs, or people that are intensely passionate, enthusiastic, and sincere. It often implies a burning, heartfelt intensity. So I can be a burning, right? Even in a sexual way, such as a fervent supporter or fervent prayer. When you go into this book of the Song of Solomon, you women who love romance novels so much, Song of Solomon, that's really the top one, the top. It's like I'm not to use the word, but that phrase, that's really the top romance book, if you ask me. And really, I believe that's fact. But I'm gonna get in here in Song of Solomon 4 in the English Bible. So then it says, a wedding night, verse 9. I love you so much that I never want to leave you, my sister and my bride. And when you looked at me only once, and I saw one jewel in your necklace, I knew that I could never leave you. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the man speaking. Because he says, my sister and my bride. The bride is the female counterpart to the bridegroom. Yeah, this is Salagi. Yeah, correcting myself. This is the man speaking. It says, your love for me is wonderful, my sister and my bride. I enjoy your love even more than I enjoy wine. So why am I bringing this? Let me stop there. Why am I bringing this? Because this is how the love for a man and a woman is supposed to be. To give you an idea, since this video is going into the woman, and how the woman should be dressed. This is how the woman should be dressed. Dressed modestly. And I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But I had this here. I want to bring this here because this describes perfectly how it originally was supposed to be with the Israelite man and the Israelite woman. How their love for each other is supposed to be. Nowadays, it's just about sex, and that's why the relationship breaks, or it's not even a genuine love, so it ends up breaking off, never to return again. But this is how the love is supposed to be here. A lot of love in this. This is Song of Solomon 4 in the Easy English Bible, and I was at verse 11. I was verse 10 on down. Your perfume has a smell that's more lovely than any spice. I also showing you how the woman should just be smelling. 11. Your lips taste very sweet to me, my bride. How a woman's lips should be. They taste like honey that falls from the honeycomb. Yeah, you're supposed to feel like you're in. Yeah, the woman you're with should give you. I don't know the word to use. Goosebumps. If your love for one another is that deep, that's how it should be. And what I noticed from growing up in the hood and stuff like that, and growing up for the Israelites, usually what they teach for love is you bring your false image, and then that woman brings her false image, and then somewhere down the line, you find out that that wasn't your real image. That wasn't your real identity. So when that woman sees what your real identity is, she leaves you. She breaks off from you because she came with her. That was her whole time. That was her true identity, but that wasn't your true identity. And in some cases, I'm describing brothers and things that happen in their life. We're reading this here in 11. Your lips taste very sweet to me, my bride. They taste like honey that falls from the honeycomb. Milk and honey are under your tongue. The smell of your clothes is like the cedar of Lebanon, trees of Lebanon. My sister and my bride, you are like a garden for me that is locked to other men. And that's also right there as a point I want to highlight that. It says that is locked to other men, meaning no other man should have ever touched you. That's why it says that is locked to other men. That what Solomon there was saying he was saying his woman was a virgin. She was very fine. Her lips was very fine. It was like perfect. She was like her physically perfect and spiritually perfect. Their love was like one. The smell of your clothes is like the cedar trees of Lebanon. Told my sister and my bride, you are like a garden for me. So he was so close to her, he even called her sister, my bride. You are like a garden for me. That doesn't mean that was his literal sister. And in a way you can say, yeah, because Israelites are related. They were both Israelites. That is locked to other man. You are like a spring of a fountain that other people may not drink water from. What is that? Look at that. That's another highlight right there, showing virginity. You are like a spring or a fountain that other people may not drink water from. So Solomon here is saying this was like we don't see those nowadays, especially in the cities of America, unless you go to some very rare spot that's never been touched by any humans or defiled by Esau's ways. You are like a spring up or a fountain that other people may not drink water from. I mean, she was a virgin. This was Solomon's personal private fountain that a water in a fountain, you think about it, a waterfall, that's fresh, that's already fresh. This wasn't talking about modern day springs or fountains. Back in that time, the springs and fountains in Solomon's time, those would have been fresh. Those would have been already fresh, representing, like the woman says when she's horny, that her vagina's wet. And Jake always says that too. One has a slang for it, like it's a waterfall. That's how Solomon's speaking here, because Solomon was a Judah, a so-called black man of the tribe of Judah, Israelite. We are Israelites. You are like the spring or the fountain. But Solomon here says does it even better when here he is. It's not just a spring or fountain, one of those fresh ones that many people can drink from. It's fresh, but this is one that he says that other people may not drink water from. It's like for ranting, but just to clarify this point I want to keep making is Solomon said there here. Back in this time, this was a spring or a fountain. Those were fresh already. But even better one here, Solomon says that this one no one even ever drink from. Oh, this is only one that he drinks from. Meaning a metaphor for her virginity, showing her virginity. So we done fell off. We done fell away. The Lord said He was gonna punish the woman when she committed adultery, because we ourselves have committed adultery against Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So now I wanna that's why I gotta get 1 Peter 3 in the KJV. 3, who's adorning, let it not be that. And that's why it says this on Proverbs 14 and the GNT 16. A gracious woman is respected. It's like a gracious woman is respected, but a woman without virtue, you see this grace. A gracious woman is just respected. A gracious woman is going to be just as modest. That's a part of her caricature. But a woman without virtue is a disgrace. That's a woman who shows her ass, who shakes her ass to everyone, who shows her ass to everyone. Her husband's gonna have to be her ass. That's what happens, because I remember when I was a child, my dad even got on my mom for dressing like that to church. But I remember her even saying she's dressing that way for God. She said it in Spanish. I'm from Issachar, the tribe of Issachar. My parents are both Issachar. Spoke. They didn't speak English. They spoke Mexican. All in our household. But me and my brothers, we would speak English. So, and we knew English more than we knew Spanish like that. I call it Mexican language because we're not Spanish are Spaniards, but then again, that's all confusing. Technically, it is Spanish. But Mexican goes back to Mexica. And that's a whole nother topic. I'm getting off topic, but Mexica, right? Proverbs 11 and the GNT 22. This is what a whore is likened unto as well. Beauty in a woman without good judgment. So she can be the most fine woman with the biggest ass and fine ass face. Perfect fucking body. And on this side, I have a lot of women on Instagram that's dressed like that. They shake their ass, show their ass. And guess what the Lord says about that? Is that we should be ashamed of that. But it also says it's Proverbs 11 and 22, especially because we're Israelites and that's not our culture. I want to hear Hebrew Israelite doctrine. Bring a Hebrew Israelite doctrine. Right, inside joke, but this is Proverbs 11 and 22. Beauty in a woman without good judgment. It's like a gold ring in a pig's snout. pig snout. Yeah, beauty in a woman without good judgment is like a gold ring and a pig's snout. Pig snout, right? So she can be the most perfect looking woman, built woman. But without good judgment, man, she shakes off her ass, she wears a G string on, jaw string on, whatever you call that, panties on, and the beach. She goes over here, she goes over there, she shows her ass to everyone, even sells her body to men. This is right here is like a gold ring in a pig's snout, yeah. What's the point of having a, imagine a pig wearing a gold ring, big ass gold ring on him. That shit is dirty, it's pointless, it don't even matter, it's useless. It's useless, you can't even eat a pig because, and this is going into Hebrew culture, when you go into Hebrew culture, our culture, a pig, we can't even touch a pig. So even if it has a gold, we see it with a gold ring on it, we can't try to take that gold ring out to keep it. Solomon wrote this, so Solomon definitely wouldn't have been wearing. Hey, maybe Solomon literally saw a pig in his time with a gold ring on it. This is how rich he was. Some Israelite man just had a pig with a gold ring in his snout. Maybe he didn't. But then, because then again, he said folly is setting for dignity, but the rich is sitting on the place. So he Solomon was seeing some folly shit in his time. That's off topic. A woman's correct order. Now here, going back to 1 Peter 3:1. That's why Peter says right here. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands. Be in subjection to your own husband. If you're in subjection to your own husband, you are going to show your body only to that man. And you're going to, and that includes you not showing your body like that. Your arms, even your neck. Your neck should even be covered. All your head, your whole head, your hair. And then these young women wonder why they get raped. They end up getting raped. There's a lot of rape cases going on in the soils of America. And that's true. They just don't speak on it. I just say that through the spirit. First Peter 3:1. That's also why the Lord allowed rape to happen. The Lord allowed rape to happen in the kingdom of Israel. But this stupid ass kingdom will argue, because these people don't know y'all. They don't know the secrets and mysteries of the kingdom. A part of the secrets and mysteries of the kingdom is knowing why a woman should be covered. That's easy. That's simple. It's basic. You should know that, especially if you're a woman, because this is what is really towards you. I don't need to tell your ass this and share this with your ass. Your ass should know to be covered and to shut the fuck up when you need to, man. Us brothers, man, we got the word, we got the truth, man. This is 1 Peter 3:1. That if any obey not the word of Yahweh Shemel Shai. So like, yeah, if any obey not the word of Yahweh Shemel Shai, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. Yeah, and your conversation's gotta show not just through words, but through actions. And part of that, one of those actions is you being covered. When we say, bro, sisters wear a dress, we don't mean one of those tight ass fucking dresses. When we say dress, this is the kind of dress we're referring to. I'm about to pull the photo up. This was recent. It caught my eye. This was interesting. This was your spirit. Power of Yahweh. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. I'm gonna look it up here. So I'm gonna Google this because I saw this. It's caught my eye. Recently, you had this performance Kanye West performed. the SoFi was his latest performance, and I happened to click on it and I'll see it, particularly with the Lauryn Hill section of the show. And I just wanted to examine through the spirit of what was going on, and then that. But this caught my eye, Lauryn Hill, particularly when this Lauryn Hill here. She was wearing this dress, and this caught my eye. Now that wasn't the dress. I don't know what that is. She was going off there in that one, but with this one in particular, I like this one she was wearing. That is Hebrew etiquette right there. Now, Lauryn Hill is wicked. She's an industry plant. She's still wicked. That could be the clone Lauryn Hill. That could be the hologram Lauryn Hill. Supposedly, Lauryn Hill done woke up long ago, not to Yahweh Shemeshah, but from the industry. Now, whatever that fuck that means, she ain't woken up to Yahweh Shemeshah. It's not a truly woke up awakening. So I'm gonna say it like this: fuck this bitch. If she's off, she's gonna be burned. She's gonna be destroyed. But as far as what she wore in this performance here, and this dress she was wearing, now all she's missing is the head wrap. But as far as that goes, this dress she wore. That's the kind of dress we refer to when we say Hebrew Israelite woman should be covered. Now, the performance of this section was black and white. So if you were to actually see it in color, maybe some of it might be off, but as far as what I'm saying, you get the point. Covered. You can't even see her body. Now, me speaking as a man, I wouldn't want to rape that. I'm not getting all horny and turned on by seeing her in that outfit. It's not appeasing. That's to the eye, to the man's eye, a real man's eye, if you know what I'm saying. In the worldly aspect, I guess. A man in the world that's a rapist, he would see that and walk straight away. Like walk through that. Like it's not like it's just nothing. It's not even interesting to him. So this is why we tell your woman to dress modest. That's how our Lord wants you to dress. Even this. Now, except for the high heels there. And then I think those are diamonds fringes that they look like coming out, except for those two things. And the dreadlocks. And then all the nails and jewelry on her hands. Put some gloves on those. That's a modest apparel right there. That's how your woman should be dressed, man. That's a champion outfit for your woman, man, to dress. Now, you're not gonna get any attention. No man's gonna be looking at you. You ain't gonna be getting stares from every fucking man. But in the eyes of Yahweh Shemeshah, man, and if you're in the woman of the Lord, especially on top of that, like Esther, like Judith, like Sarah from the book of Tobit, like Sarah from the book of Abraham, like Mary Magdalene when she repented, not the old Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, man. Way off. Legions of demons. But the after change of Mary Magdalene and then her sister Mary, once meeting Yahushua, changing, turning into a real woman of the Lord after God's own, after their man of the Lord's heart, who are overseers to your sisters. That's a gold. That's priceless. That's in the eyes of Yahweh, man. This is to your father Yahweh, man. That's what he wants to see right there. Your father Yahweh wants you to dress like this. This is a. If I had a daughter, this is how I would make her, command her to dress. I don't care if she would get all disgruntled about it, grumpy about it. That's how she would have to dress, man. And then she'll be learning and being raised up in the ways of Yahweh. This right here, another good dress right there. She just needs the head wrap. This one's even better because there's no jewelry, none of that, nail polish, or no makeup. I'm sure Lauren Hill doesn't wear any makeup. It's her natural face. That's another thing. You women that wear makeup so much, that shit is fucking annoying. It's the most fucking annoying thing. Especially for you Israelite woman. You Yasharalite woman, right? E-bites. Scripture say. So I just wanted to get that out. As an example. These ones are down here in black and white. This one is one for you to show you in color. This one. That's what caught my eye, and I was like, I had to bring that up and make a video on it, because for a while I even prayed to the Lord. It's been like a year ago, like to like show a perfect example. I believe I pray is show me, Lord, a perfect example of a dress, so I can end up making a video on it. Like that. I'm gonna pull this up here. This is in Genesis 3:16. The NIV in verse 16. To the woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. Severe means to cut in half. Because it makes sense, because when the baby comes out, it's like the vagina is already shaped as like a cut to something. So the baby's coming out, her baby, her child's, and her baby daddy's child's coming out of her cut, her opening. And it's also spiritual, because when the woman's a virgin, usually they get their period at age 12. For most women, some women they may get it as late as in their late 8 as a latter 8-year-old, latter 9-year-old. Just saying the facts, sir. And males, even us, when we bust our nuts, we get it. And what my brother, to a testimony, he got his when he was 9. In some pool somewhere. I guess I remember him telling me when I was younger, before the truth. Me, I got busted my nut first nut when I was like, I was like 9 too. Might have been 8. And then more later on when I was 12, but that's too personal, right? It's lucky if that was too personal. I don't want to get too personal and all that, but this is the same with young women. And then why do you think your young boys and girls end up getting so horny and growing up to be whores? Because you're not. We used to do this when we had our inheritance before it was taken from us by Yahweh Basham Shah for our disobedience. Marrying our sons and daughters at a younger age, giving them, having the father pick out his virgin woman for his child at that young age when he was turned 12. God. This is Genesis 3. Genesis, the 3rd chapter. And this is verse 16. On down. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Your desire will be for your husband. So if you're a woman of the Lord, you will actually desire a husband, you will. Just like we desire a Israelite woman who is in her right order. You women that are going to have to be in the same wave. desire a Hebrew Israelite man in his right order. There's you women you can't just shut that off, part of you off. The Lord built us this way. You women are designed to want to desire a man. Even if you claim to be a virgin and on the level of that that one daughter of that one judge who had to be a virgin and she got sacrificed. You woman desire a man. It's like the young man and the young woman desire. Talking about the young man and young woman, they desire the opposite sex of their opposite sex, right? The opposite sex of their opposite sex, yeah. That was really the point. I'll just close out 1 Peter 3, continuing on in 2. While they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. Another thing that shows your fear is your head covered. Now, you should already know that, but I'm going to get it here just in case to those who don't know. Paul talks about it, where your head should be covered. 1 Corinthians 14 and verse. Okay, got it right here in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2 to 16. Subheading says, head coverings. Now I command you because you remember me in everything and maintain the great traditions even as I delivered them to you. But I want you to understand that the head of every man is a Mashiach. The head of a wife is her husband. And the head of a Mashiach is Yahweh. Paul says right there, the head of a wife is her husband. Hence why she has to wear a head covering. Because just like the fringes, we were commanded to wear fringes because it was even us as the men to remind us of our power Yahweh. That head covering was that for your woman toward your man, to remind you of your man that he's above you. You got to obey him. For every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. Yeah, if a man has his head covered and prophesies that way, that's off. But every wife who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. I remember in one church I went to, a Christian church, Issachar, the women sometimes they'll have their head covered only when they pray. What it's really talking about having your head covered all the time. Since it is the same as if her head was shaved or shaven. 6. Yeah, so if you just don't have your head covered, it's like your woman was shaven. That represents you trying to be masculine like a man, trying to be like a man. That's why we always talk about the black woman now. She always wants to be masculine. These modern women, westernized women, American women are masculine. So you're not having your head covered. If you're a woman in the Lord, you're essentially doing what the heathens do. And today, westernized America, that's being masculine. The woman wants to be masculine. That's off. So verse 6. For if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair out short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. And I saw this video of this one false prophetess talk about her hair, and she didn't even have her hair covered. And that's Babylon for you. That's witchcraft. That's off. Verse 7. For a man ought not to cover his head, So the Lord's saying there in verse 6, you can't cut your hair short. If you cut your hair short, you're disgracing your head. So cover your head. The Lord's saying cover your head, or He can curse you if you take your hair off on your woman. Hence why Isaiah 3rd chapter goes into that. How the Lord's going to do that. He's already been doing that to a lot of black women. So for a man, because they like a lot of black women like wearing dreadlocks, and they're rebellious. They want to be masculine. So the Lord, hence why the Lord does it. Made the black bitch bald. I'm just gonna say how it is and made the black bitch bald. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, it's not mostly to northern tribe women, but it's mainly to the black bitch because the black bitch is very wicked, is very rebellious. That's why, brother, that had to happen to the black bitch. 7. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of Yahweh. Yeah, the man doesn't have to cover his head because it represents he's the glory of Yahweh. It's an order. It's a even the uniform, the dress code the Lord gave us. This is the dress code. It shows the order. And there's a purpose behind it. The Lord doesn't want the woman to cover her head just to look all silly. That's how an American who doesn't know the scriptures would look at it as. If it wasn't for Ishmael and the Islamists and how they still carry our traditions, because that's really our culture. And you were to just do that, they would just see a woman do that, they would be like, "What the fuck? That looks silly." But no, that's the Lord's dress code. It's for a reason. It's for a purpose, bro. Like sometimes something can look stupid, it can look ridiculous, it can look silly, it can seem like it's hard to understand because people hate what they can't understand, so they mock it or make fun of it. But the Lord does it because it's for a specific set time, set reason, set purpose, man. So anyway, verse 7. Yeah, verse 7. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of Yahweh. But a woman is the glory of man. Yeah. And a woman is the glory of a man. That's all always references out. You women are just sex toys. You're a sex slave to your man. That's really what you're supposed to be. And femininity, feminine doesn't go into you showing your body to every man. Femininity goes into you being submissive to one man. No man should know what the fuck your woman looks like, ass is shaped like, look like. Cause now that man, that's a nag that you ain't gonna be able to take that from that man's mind. Hence why the Lord commanded, hence why the Lord commanded bestiality, a law on that. If the animal got raped, the animal would have to be killed. Because it would be defiled for the rest of his life. And then the dude that did that, or the woman that committed that atrocity, this disgusting abomination, they would have to be fucking killed. Lord, they ain't with that. Hence why your woman would have to be killed if you commit adultery. Now, technically speaking, by you showing your body to everybody, now that everybody can see your body, you technically have committed adultery. Because somewhere the man's gonna another man's gonna see that. He may never get it off his head, his mind, because he's in the flesh. Demons, Satan's temptations. Yeah. You get the picture. I'm painting a picture, so this is verse 1 Corinthians 11, verse 7. But woman is the glory of man. 8. For man was not made from woman, but woman from man. Yeah. Meaning, Paul saying right there, just like Earth's heart says, Paul saying right here. No coincidence they both speak on the woman heavily like this, exactly like how the heart does it. For man was not made from woman, but woman from man. But that's besides the point. This is the point here. Paul is saying right here exactly what the horse says. Women are just sex toys, just sex slaves. Now, neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. Yeah, you woman weren't. Man wasn't created for you woman to have sex with. You women were created for a man to have sex with. Because when a man is depressed, the horse said it before. When a man is depressed, you know what cures that depression? Having some good sex with a fine ass woman. Not just any woman, not any ugly woman. With a fine ass woman, man. That will cure his depression. Not neither was man created for a woman, but woman for man. This is why a wife ought to have a symbol of authority on her head, because of the angels. Because the angels see too. The angels are basically, the Lord also references the angels as his spirit. You go back to the wilderness as a precept, that precept. So, because the angels can see, it's going to know that that's your woman. Now that she ain't covered, the angels will kill her ass. Because look at how the Lord felt when Abraham, this woman was mistaken for his sister, and the Pharaoh of Egypt, if I'm not mistaken, took her as in his bed. The Lord said, "Hey, bring that woman." Don't the Lord? He didn't even touch the woman, and the Lord saved the day as well, because who knows what would have happened. The Lord came and said, "Hey, if you touch that woman, I'm gonna kill you, kill your ass. Bring my man's woman back to him. That's his." As in verse 11, nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor man of woman. Yeah, the man and the woman need each other. Hence why you woman always, going back to that verse in Genesis 3, the man's desire should be toward her man. I mean, the woman's desire should be toward her man. The woman's desire should be toward her man. That's why you women always want to have sex. The man can go without sex for a minute, because you were created for the man, not man for the woman. The man represents more discipline. Hence why Paul talks about, or I think that's Peter talks about, giving a time and space for a man and woman that may be together in the truth, given a time and space where you all ain't with each other. Preferably not living in the same house with each other, because that brings temptation, and you can have sex with your woman too much. 10. That is why a wife ought to have a symbol of authority on her head, because of the angels. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not. Yeah. For as woman was made from a man, so man is now born of woman. Yeah, man made the woman first. The angels made the woman, all the man first. Then they made all the woman first, and on top of it, all the angels were man. And that they gave credit to the Lord, because the Lord gave the blueprint. The angels helped to create. Think of a CEO in the business. CEO has employees that make the business, make the ideas of the CEO's plans run. Respectfully, humbly, I say so that. As 13, judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a wife to pray to Yahweh with her head uncovered? Yeah, because that you're gonna be praying to the Lord. If you're a woman of the Lord, you're gonna be praying to the Lord. That's why these women of the road, they don't have to cover their head, because they don't care about the Lord. Sarah in the book of Tobit, there was two Sarahs, one in Genesis, one in the book of Tobit. I'm referring to the one in the book of Tobit. When she prayed, she had her head covered. Mary Magdalene and her sister Martha, when they prayed, they had her head covered. Esther, when she prayed, she had her head covered. And hence why the Lord lists to it. Deborah, and then the other woman in the book of Deborah, they beheaded that man. And then there's another one in the book of Judith. Judith might just be Deborah because it's a similar story, very similar story. And then Judith didn't chop the dude's head off, but there was another woman too in the book of Judith who chopped the dude's head off. There's two accounts of a woman chopping the dude's heads off, and then that one woman leading. One in the Judges, Deborah, and the other one in the book of the Apocrypha, Judith. The book of Judith. When they prayed, they had their heads covered. They had their heads covered. If they would have not had their heads covered, the Lord was not going to listen to them. And they might argue, a wicked ass woman that's not in the truth. That's of the 2/3. It's a reprobate. This is a reprobate argument. But that's in the New Testament. They didn't do that in the Old Testament. That's something new that Paul made, right? Look at this. I'm gonna cut their asses with AI. Just using AI. Check this out. I googled, did the Hebrew Israelite woman cover their heads before Paul spoke on head coverings? And it says here on the AI overview. Yes, Jewish. We're not Jewish, but just pretend it says Jew. Yes, Jew, Hebrew Israelite woman cover their heads for modesty and to signify marriage long before Paul's instructions in 1 Corinthians 11. This practice was a customary established cultural norm for a woman in the ancient Mediterranean, and in some cases was legally and traditionally mandated for married women to show modesty. And they going off there by saying just married woman. No, that's just at my young age, they would do this. They have their woman, a little girl, toddler, she would have her head covered. Key historical context: cultural modesty for centuries it was standard for marriage. Okay, they're going off again, saying just married. No. Then again, I mean, no, that's not. No, I don't believe that though. I mean, it's possible because I wasn't. As they're getting more complex now, but I'm gonna say they all had their head covers. Whether married, unmarried, they had their head covers because they didn't want to get raped. Oh yes, he is. So I also googled, and this is a different question. I googled: did the Hebrew Israelite women cover their heads before Paul spoke on head coverings? Show me an Old Testament accounts from the Bible if you can. They say yes, Hebrew women generally covered their hair as a sign of modesty and cultural propriety long before Paul wrote 1 Corinthians 11. This practice was largely understood as a sign of being married and was customary for women in public. Genesis 24:65, when Rebekah saw Isaac for the first time, she took a veil and covered herself to show modesty as a bride to be. Just proving my point once again. They're going off by saying only when they were married they cover their heads. No, that was even before they got married. Prime example with Rebecca. First off, before we even make a move, what does marriage mean? Us brothers that's been in this thing season, we already know what that means. If you're in this truth, you should know what that means. What is marriage? Is it a certificate? Is it a piece of paper? No, and excuse my language. It's sex. It's sex. Sex is marriage. And intercourse, sexual intercourse. You taking your rod, putting it in her growing area, that's marriage. Popping her, putting your seed in her, that's marriage. That's what constitutes marriage, not the state. What they classify as marriage on this side, it's wicked. It's all from the higher up elites. particularly also as a trap to the Israelite man, especially to take all his shit. Numbers 5 and 18. In the case of the Sotah, a woman suspected of adultery, the priest was instructed to uncover her hair or loosen her hair, proving that they had their hair covered, implying that it was usually kept uncovered. Song of Solomon 5 and 7. The woman in this text describes the watchman. Oh, and this is going to cut them. Because the woman there in this Song of Solomon 5 there, she was not yet popped or married or promised their marriage to Solomon. The woman in this text describes the watchman taking her veil from her, which implies it was worn while out in public. So these are three accounts showing you. Before Paul wrote that, there's accounts, certain accounts, three precepts in particularly right there, those that I brought. There could be more of where they had to cover their heads. The woman had their heads covered. So finishing, we just have a couple more verses in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 13. Judge for yourselves, it is proper for a wife to pray to Yahweh. It says God there means empower. I just say Yahweh, because the word God goes back to gold or Gad. We don't worship gold or Gad. It says with her head uncovered. 14. Does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, it is a disgrace to him? Yeah. Because think about a man if he has long hair. Even the woman of the world would agree and say they don't like it. They wouldn't like that. When I see a man with his head covered, bro, that's weird to me, man. It look like a female, especially when you apply the scriptures to it, and how the Lord even himself says that that's off. Particularly if you're Israelite man, if you're an Israelite man. If Esau doesn't care, because Esau's a faggot anyway. And then the other heathens, it doesn't matter, because the Lord didn't give them these laws. So anyway, it says here, just for yourselves, is it proper for a wife to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, it is a disgrace to him? So Paul is basically saying, if your woman don't think it's wrong for your head to be covered, then every man or the man you're with, for the woman of the world, they have for man, the worldly woman, wicked woman. So even to them, if you don't think your hair should be covered, then that means every man you pop then should have his hair long as hell, like a female, like yours. And your woman, they don't like that. You know your woman don't like that. So that's why, that's how it is for the woman if you don't have your head covered. That should only be shown but to do that, that woman has to be submissive and walking in faith. Willing to submit to her man no matter what her feelings tell her, especially on this side. Because on this side, Esau pushed the woman to just say, excuse my language, but this is what Esau thinks the woman to say is fuck the man, right? And to treat him as they're beneath them. That's why there's a lot of men with low self-esteem. They're afraid of the woman. They even get suicidal because of how destroyed we've been. That shit destroys a man, bro. That shit is humiliating to a man. And Esau, that's why Esau has to, you already know. Anyway, continuing on 15. But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for a covering. Yeah. And then a lot of Christian women, I know there's one Christian woman, she used that. I commented on her video, and then she replied with this scripture to go into, because my comment was to her. This was on YouTube, because a lot of these fake Christian women also go up there. And then a lot of times I like to play around with them, and especially if they single, and comment on this thing and say, bring out that scripture where Paul says to cover their heads. So one time this woman brought this out, talking about But if a woman has her long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for recovery. So they make that excuse of, oh, that's the covering right there. So she doesn't have to literally cover her head. 16. If anyone is inclined to be contentious, we have no such practice, nor do the churches of Yahweh. But another thing, through spirit, when Paul wrote that one sentence in verse 15, he was writing that to trick the woman as well. Because you got to remember, Paul was also, when you go into the account of the book of Acts, when he uses, what's the word I'm looking for, man? Apostle Hart spoke on this before too. In the book years back in 2020. Paul spoke on this years ago. Or it's a horse. I mean, it was a horse. I mean, I said Apostle Paul. I mean, it was the horse. The same people, right? Same person, right? Also Jeremiah, but and we don't say other flex. Apostle Paul is not say other flex. It's just the fact that Yahushua knew he was Solomon. But we're not gonna get all into that, man. It's best that you don't know who you are because you can't. That can make you proud. I heard Apostle Ramla say that, calling him words of wisdom, wise words. That's why elders rules well. According to the scriptures, by the scriptures. Anyway, continuing on. 1 Corinthians 11 and verse 15. But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for recovery. If anyone is inclined to be contentious, we have no such practice, nor do this. Okay, once again, in verse 15, when you go into that, we got to remember that Paul was very cunning. Paul used what does Jacob mean? Supplant. Apostle Paul was good at pulling a fast one. That's what always says. He knew how to use his words, using wisdom. Doesn't Yahushua say to use wisdom? Because even Yahushua said, give to Caesar what was to Caesar. He who has an ear, let him hear. To those who perceive it, to perceive it. Yeah, in the book of Acts, there's an account where Apostle Paul tells this Edomite king he's standing in front of, he's answering to for his court. He's telling him, I wish that thou wouldst be anything but these chains as I am. Now we know that Caesar he said that to was an Edomite. So you can argue, what Paul was saying by saying that he was saying the Edomites can be saved. Paul was very controversial. So when it's no surprise in his writings, he'll be controversial. I believe he's your spirit. He was really saying it. And then you can see it this way. And if you can't see it this way, you don't have a spirit in you. What Paul was saying was basically he was testing his woman by saying this, because he was going to sit down a lot of women by saying this. And through the spirit, how should I make him to say it this way? But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for recovery. That's like when someone gives a speech, right? And then they give a speech, but then in the end of it, they kind of want to give you like a quick, slick question about it. You got when you read this, you got to think about it like a long speech. You got to see yourself in it. You got to read it like a jig, imaginative, asking questions. Jake's got to ask. Jake's got to be curious. That's why Peter also says, Paul's writings, which are hard to be understood, which some misinterpret to their destruction. So that was 1 Corinthians. This is what I'm going to do. So I go with this. It was 1 Corinthians, just out of curiosity, it was 1 Corinthians 11 about the woman having a literal bear covering over her head and hair. So I'm basically saying the chapter we just read. Was that going into a literal head covering? 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2 to 16 discusses a covering for a woman during public worship, which scholars interpret as either a literal cloth, a veil, head covering, reflecting cultural modesty and authority, or as long hair mentioned as natural covering. The passage, so some scholars agree it's a literal cloth, some others would say that's already, the covering's already her long hair. The passage emphasizes propriety, gender distinction, and submissive attitude toward God Yahweh, using the covering as an outward symbol of authority. Key perspectives on 1 Corinthians 11 and 4 to 15. Yeah, but basically it's simple. This is what going back to the comment I had back and forth with that chick. She brought out 1 Corinthians 11:15, but it's basically it's not even complicated. It's simple. When you read the earlier verses, we read those earlier verses, the context. It's going into a literal head covering. You can't read verse 15 and then automatically think that that's what's the head covering Paul was speaking about. No, because then otherwise, what was the point of verse? Let me see, find it. If that was the case, what was the point of verse 5 when it says, "But every wife who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head." Since it is a shame for a woman, for it is the same as if her head were shaven. 6 for if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. That's the point right there. And I also looked this up. It's 1 Corinthians. I asked Google this as well. A different question here. Is 1 Corinthians 11:15 meaning a woman doesn't need to wear a head covering? Or I should put a literal veil head covering, then explain the earlier verses. 1 Corinthians says, AIOB says, 1 Corinthians 11:15, for her hair is given to her for a covering, as interpreted by some as meaning long hair is intended spiritual cover, is the intended spiritual covering, while others believe it is a supplemental covering to a physical veil. The preceding verses 2 to 14 generally argue for maintaining gender distinctions in proper order and worship, with views divided on whether this requires a literal cloth veil today. Verse 5 to 6, a woman is instructed to add a second covering, a veil, to show this difference as discussed on. That's what it's going into. Verse 2 to 4 here. Yeah, and plus on top of it, they would have already knew what Paul was referring to by this. Because you can argue verse 5, but every wife who prays and prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. You can argue that means her head is shaven, because down in verse 15, Paul is saying, talking about the literal natural hair. He is talking about literal natural hair right there. If a woman has long hair, it is her glory. Her hair is given to her for covering that. Because when you go into verse 10, So like, yeah, I'm redundant on it. The point is already made. But when you go into verse 10, it's because when you go into verse 10, right? Matter of fact, verse 14. All you gotta do is jump up to verse 14. Paul is just explaining here. Verse 14 and 15 is really separate from 2 to 13. Because when you go to verse 14 and 15, Paul is just like he said in up for section in verse 2 to 14. When Paul goes into a man that can't cover his head when he prays, because he's the glory of Yahweh, the power of Yahweh. If a woman doesn't cover her head when she's praying, it's disrespect because it shows she has no authority over it. The covering on her head represented the cloth covering on her head on top of her natural hair covering on her head that grows already represents two coverings. Going back to also what it says in Genesis about they were naked. They were naked. They were found naked. It makes sense for the Lord want the woman to cover her head literally because she went off big time. Hence why the man also doesn't have to cover his head when he's praying. He was referring that to the section of praying. Now, when you go down to verse 14 to 15, this is talking about natural hair. Hence why a man can't just wear long ass hair. When you go to verse 15, now Paul is describing the natural hair covering. So verse 14 to 15 is describing the natural hair covering. Verse 2 to 13 is describing the outer covering outside of the natural hair covering. The man doesn't have to wear a veil to cover his head, especially when he's praying and prophesying. Particularly, the woman does. Also, why a man can't be wearing long hair? That's going to represent like as if he wore a covering when he's praying and prophesying. It would be the same as if he would just had long hair if he prays and prophesied with his head covered. Like Sakari can't, when they were existed, they used to always do. Now the woman, verse 2 to 14, 2 to 13 is describing the woman's outer hair covering. She has to have an outer hair covering, outside of her natural hair covering, to also further represent her authority she has under her man. And by the way, on top of this, we already brought those three other precepts. On Song of Solomon, how Solomon had to take out the veil she had on top of her head. That was a literal cloth veil covering. Sarah had to uncover her head. In Genesis 20, Salakia. Not Sarah, Rebecca had to. She took she took a veil and covered herself for Isaac before marriage, before the sex. Numbers 5 and 18 describes when they commit adultery, the woman go up to the priest. Now, she wasn't praying and prophesying. When she goes up to the priest, she's quiet. The priest was instructed to uncover her hair, implying that it was usually kept covered. Now, you can't uncover a woman's hair. Obviously, he's not going to be shaving the fucking woman. She's going to end up getting killed for adultery. Lord ain't going to waste time by shaving her head. It's just simply a head covering right there. It's proving that that's the literal head covering there. Numbers 5 and 18 when the priest uncovers her hair. In the case of when the adultery comes up and has to confront the priest. Salakia, if suspected of adultery. In the case of you're suspecting your wife of adultery, in each case you would have to bring your wife to the priest. Now, in some cases she might not commit adultery, you just suspected it. But come on. So just bring some understanding on 1 Corinthians 11, 2 to 16. Verse 14 and 15. Now, when you get into 15, it's going to be confusing. When you first read this, I get it. I understand that. Don't read 14 and 15 as if it's together with 2 to 13, because you're going to get confused. So I'm pretty sure I made my point on that. So with that, that's the point of that. So it's going into the woman covering herself, modesty. That dress we showed, that's how your woman should be covered, dressed. Certain Ezekielites, the Latinas, when they get their dresses in the quinceañeras, some of those are on point. It's supposed to look like a big puffy ass shoulder pad, where your head is barely even, you can barely see your neck if you even, this would look like you if you even have a neck. And then and down below, you shouldn't even be able to see your legs. That should look like a whole fucking bush in the time of the midsummer, where you got beautiful rain, perfect rain, sunlight in the bushes, and the bushes just overgrow the whole house. It should look like when a house has some bushes in front of the house, but then you can't even see the house because the bushes got so tall, they weren't trimmed, and yeah, that's how the woman's dress should be. So that's the point. That's the point. And technically speaking, since we're just on the discussion real quick, not to get all personal, but the man should be covered too. A man shouldn't have what they call it, bulge. When you can see a man's bulge, a man shouldn't have his bulge hanging out either, man. That's similar to as if a woman had her titties out. And in some cases, the shirt is so thin, there's not even a bra under it. You see the nipple. In certain cases, men wear sweatpants or shorts that are, and then the boxers are so thin that, or in some cases, they don't even wear their boxers. That you can see the outline of their penis. They call it a bulge. When you go commando, and then you got those thin ass shorts, he's wearing underwears, you can see your bulge. Now, I remember at times when I was in my house, and I ran out of underwears. And so, and this ain't to be funny or nothing, but just thinking about it now, I didn't know as a young boy, but I would be around my mom, and then I always wonder why she would keep looking down on that area, because that, and it bothered me. But I just didn't know the laws, statutes, commandments, proper ways you should be brought up. I stuck with a fucking grudge that whole time, not knowing why that was about. I felt like it was my freedom to wear that way. Subconsciously, I never said it or expressed it intellectually, but I was a young boy, but yeah. So that's the point. Be covered, man. That's why me personally, when I always go out, I mean, you can wear you can wear a pair of sweatpants under those, and then another pair of sweatpants if they're thick enough. Like, thick enough, that could fly. And that's why that's why you never see me in sweatpants. Every time I go out in the public, I wear pants. When was the last time you see me in sweatpants out in the public like that? But yeah, man, no. And I remember the brother Kazak made a good point. And how you notice Kazak, he's always wearing long sleeves. The brother Kazak made that point. He still has his Kazak still has his freedom if you see him with short. If you see Kazak with short sleeves short, you might have to get on him, but I'm just fucking with you, but yeah, that's why Eric Kazak always, but because it's not like he made a bow. I get it, but not to get on, brother, but if you notice him, I'm pretty sure he's still doing that, where he wears the long sleeves, because when he brought that to my attention, I was actually hitting struck. So for a season, I was wearing long sleeves. But kind of, and I feel like personally, even our necks as an Israelite man, even our necks should be covered because certain brothers got a lot of muscle, triceps, and then the neck. And sometimes, unless you wear a turtleneck, technically speaking, we should be wearing turtlenecks. Cause, especially if you're muscle built like that, because a woman look at that and a woman gets horny seeing it's like we'll get horny seeing a woman's ass, they'll get horny seeing a man's muscles a lot, especially out like that. If he's tall and perfect build. But with that, man, that's the point. Shalom, bar. But at the same time, if you, hey, at the same time, brothers, that ain't to hurt your freedom, because even King David, when he danced, his loins showed. But it's awesome if you, from time to time, keep that custom just to remind you of your Hebrew within you. In all seriousness, I hope I'm not coming off trying to be silly or nothing. Hope this came out sincere. Shalom, and hopefully this came out edifying. Shalom in the bar.